Hello, my front-end friends. With CSS, we've gone from having no ways to animate to and from a height of auto to having two different ways of doing it. That's right, we have two different ways to do it with interpolate-size and calc-size, which are two new CSS features that, as I said, open up this possibility of animating and transitioning to and from things like height auto and other keywords like fit content, max content, and the other ones like that. So in this video, I'm going to be breaking down both of them, looking at how they work, and we're also going to be looking at the difference between the two and how to know which one you should use in what situation. Luckily, it's not one of those ones where there's any wiggle room or gray zone. It's pretty straightforward on how you know which one you want in any given situation. And so let's go and dive into the browser, though we're not looking at code just yet because I wanted to let you know that this video is based on an article that I wrote for Stephanie Eckel's 12 Days of Web. The article is linked just down below in the description of this video, and 12 Days of Web is awesome. This is last year's because I'm recording before it came out. Where Stephanie has this advent calendar of awesome web features with a new one releasing on each day. As time goes on, we can switch over to titles here, and these are the ones that were released last year. She's been doing this since 2021. And so for the day of the release of this video, the first one coming out is the article associated with this video with interpolate-size and calc-size. So if you'd prefer articles or written content, you can go and check that one out. Or if you want, just watch this video. And then when you're done, head on over to the 12 Days of Web, and then you can sign up for updates to make sure you don't miss any of them. Or if you're watching this in the future, you know you have a whole bunch of awesome articles waiting for you to go and check out. I'll remind you at the end of the video to go and do that. And if you're here for interpolate-size and calc-size, you'll definitely want to check out the other things there because it's always really cool, awesome web features that are featured in the articles of the 12 Days of Web all the time. So first things first, interpolate-size. If we look here, I have this thing that opens and closes. When I click on it, we're just going from a height of 1 LH, which made it really easy for me to match the height of my element here, to a height of auto. So you can see it's opening and closing just like that. And what we'd like to do is transition that height, but we can't transition heights, or we haven't been able to transition heights until now, but luckily we can do it now with this interpolate-size allow keywords. And if we use that, all of a sudden, it just works. It's magical. I love this so much. It makes me so happy. Now, the reason we couldn't do this in the past is because of the keyword auto here, which would just, there was no way for the browser to figure out what the auto was, and it didn't work. And so they created this allow keywords to be able to do it. And there's a really important thing actually with this before we get into some of the other parts of it, is right now I'm placing this here on the element where the transition is happening, which might be what you'd think about doing, but there's a better way of doing this generally, which is to come all the way up and just say HTML and place it right here instead. Any of those would work because this is an inherited property. So it's basically like a switch that you can turn on for your site-wide animations or transitions to things like height auto and other things that we'll be looking at in this throughout this video. And it just, as you can see, is still working. And this is really, really awesome. So I've already started playing around with this. This isn't the most practical example, but in a very similar way with things like menus, where we can have a menu that opens and closes and things like that. Just, it is really important that if you are doing it for a menu like this, that you're still, if the content is hidden completely away, I don't want to be able to like tab onto that content, right? If I was going through or access that content in any way. So you still want to take the proper steps of hiding it when it's gone and bringing it back in when it's there. So, and with this, I am actually doing, I think a display none would work. But in this example right here, if I come down a little bit, I am changing the visibility. So when the visibility is set to none, so I go from visible to a visibility of hidden. You could also do a display none, other things like that. If you're actually hiding content away, make sure that it's not actually accessible through your keyboard or through assistive technologies and things. Now, one question that you might have though is just like, if you are bringing this into projects like this, like why am I putting it on the root, or why am I bringing it into my HTML selector here? Why isn't this just the new default if the browsers are able to do it now? And the main reason is there's a lot of websites that were built in the past where this wasn't the default. So there could have been the JavaScript being used that's coming in to do a lot of these calculations, or there could have just been assumptions made where there's some transitions done just like this, like transition 1 second, but knowing that if it's on things like height auto or other keywords like that, that it's not going to work. And that potentially by bringing it in and making it work, all of a sudden you're causing bugs and issues with those older sites where they were made with the assumption that this was impossible. So we have like basically a one-liner now to just site-wide opt-in. Really, really cool. I would definitely include this in a reset if I was making a new project right now and just throw it in there. Why not? I can't think of a reason not to do that. But because of what I said on older sites, potentially having conflicts, I wouldn't just throw it into an old project I was working on. I would, if you wanted to add it in, you could either add it on the elements where you need it, or you could add it in but just do a lot of testing first, especially if you have animations and transitions happening, just to make sure that nothing funky happens along the way. But on new projects, I would definitely jump in and just throw it in there and use it however I want. One cool example here, or not cool, but just to show you that we can do it with other things. So here, instead of using the auto keyword, I'm doing it for a width of max content. So if my button gains focus, it goes up to a max content, which means my width matches the text if there's no line breaks on it. And then when it loses focus, it's going back to the width of 150 here. Bit of a silly example, but I wanted to show something where max content comes in. Maybe a more practical example. This one's from Bramis, part of the article that he wrote for the Google's, I think it's the Chrome for Developers blog. I'll include a link to his article on it below, but I thought this was a nice use case right here. So same idea, where we have the interpolate size allow keywords, but he just has a width of 2.5 rem to make it the size that we have here with the icon in there, and it transitions that width, and then with hover or focus visible, we're going up to the width of max content, and we can see our text right there. And so that's pretty cool. The other thing with this is right now, browser support is definitely not perfect for this at all. I will include a link to the browser support tables down below. But the really cool thing with this is it's a really fantastic example of something that can be used as a progressive enhancement. Because if it doesn't work, if the browser comes along and it doesn't know what interpolate size is, nothing's actually going to go wrong. It just works. We just don't have the animation on there. And obviously it'd be nice if everybody had that. But is that little micro animation really make or break? No, it definitely isn't. We're getting all the context. I can see the writing in here. I have access to all of that. Same if I'm tabbing through. So functionally, everything is still here. We just don't have that little animation that is far from a make or break. Just does look, it's a nice little touch more than anything. And for a lot of these things, you know, if, for example, the menu, if this just open and close instead of sliding out and sliding in, same idea. It's not going to break anything. It's just a nice little extra touch. So for me, I see this as a fantastic use of a progressive enhancement that I'd be happy to put in my websites today and not worry too much about it. Another cool thing that we can do with them is we can do a little bit more here where we can come in with nicer transitions or play with our transitions or use these with animations as well. So here, I'm not doing this with a transition. Instead, I have my height of 1LH, and when it opens, I'm running an animation. So if we come all the way down here, I have just the to and the from animations here. So transitions or animations, it works. And the reason I went with it with an animation in this situation is just because I wanted to play with the timing function. Of course, you can change the timing functions with your transitions as well, but wanted to show it with an animation too. So this is really cool. And this is using a linear function right here, which is awesome. And it allows us to do stuff like this. The problem with it is you can see it's really complicated to make these and not super easy. So this one I actually got from linear-easinggenerator.netlify.app, which we can look at here, which has a few different presets that you can use. So the bounce preset is the one I used in this case. I just copied what they had there and used it, and I liked it a lot. You can see they have a few others that you can sort of go through, but something that's a little bit more user-friendly than this one is easingwizard.com. And EasingWizard has the regular Beziers here, but if you switch it over to Spring, you can see it's now springing back and forth. Really cool. You can play with the mass of the thing, the stiffness of your spring, the damping and other stuff. So and there's different presets. We have bounces as well. So you can play around with this. This video is not for linear easing functions, but since I used one, I did want to show somewhere you can get it and definitely play around with them. And Easing Wizard is now my go-to for these. It's really cool. And I forget who shared this with me on Blue Sky, but thank you so much for sharing it because it's a really awesome resource for coming up with some curves and everything else that we might need along the way here. But if we jump back into these, yeah, so we can get nice animations or transitions. And that's, I think, it, or the basics at least, for interpolate size. Then we have calc-size. And calc-size is different. And calc-size is actually the one I knew about. I'd been following calc-size. This was the one that was going to be like, it's going to allow us to do animations with auto and all of that. And interpolate size for me just like came out of nowhere. It just got added into the browser and I was like, wait, what is this? I've never heard of it before. And I'm like, oh, it just makes life super easy. Calc-size is very similar in a way. in that it does allow for transitions and animations, but more importantly, the purpose of calc-size is to do calculations on sizes. So let's say you wanted to do a calc, right? Just like a regular calc, but you wanted to be able to use your auto and then do plus 2 rem or something. That was always impossible. But now we can do that with calc-size. So right here, I can say calc-size instead of just a regular calc. And the one thing with it is the syntax is a little bit strange, where you put in the value that you want to do the calculation on, then you do a comma, and then you put in size, and then you do the math you want. So size plus 2 rem. And my button here, or my little, whatever this, my text box there gets bigger, or the max content plus 3 rem. Or I could say that it's auto size minus 3 rem. Let's say, and because the auto would be like the full width. So if we just left it like that, it would be no different, but minus 3 rem, and it's going to be 3 rem smaller than what auto would actually be. So we can do calculations based on the size of things, which is neat and really handy, and inspired a little bit by the buttons that I showed from Bramis before. I played around with this a little bit, and I made these guys where you can do this type of thing, right? So I have my button, and in this case, I did a custom property of an icon offset of 3ch. And then I have an SVG icon in there, and I just use position absolute, right, my offset, right? So it sticks out the side. And because we have the overflow hidden, or overflow clip that I put on the parent, if we turn that off, we'll see the icon floating out there, just like that. And so I know exactly how far out that is. It's 3ch off to the side. So that means when I hover, I can say my inline size is my auto, because I was using position absolute, so it's out of the flow. So I do my auto, and I say auto plus that icon offset size, and then it matches the size. And the nice thing with this is it doesn't matter, short text, long text. It's always using auto, so it's always based on the size of the text. And then I can add or subtract the size I need. Super handy, I think, in the right situation. Let's put that overflow clip back on. So yeah, I think that could be really handy, but in the same way that we did our transitions and animations before, we can do it here as well. So if we look here, I'm doing that on my button on the inline size, and inline size is the logical property for my width. So that just means here on my button, I can say that I want to do a transition inline size. Oh, we'll make this cooler in a second too, but inline size with 1 second on there. And in doing that, if I come and take a look, now it transitions. And the cool thing with this is not only is it transitioning and working pretty well, but I don't have that interpolate size allow keywords anywhere. If you do not have this anywhere in your site, this is still going to work, and it's still going to allow the animation to come in and do its thing. So it works independent. It just enables it on this element instead of something that enables it site-wide. But because this is a value that I'm putting here, it's not something that gets inherited or anything. So this will only be element by element, and I'm highlighting the wrong thing there. It was this one where I was using it. So yeah, when you use the calc-size, it's only going to be for that one element where you're enabling the transition if you haven't used the interpolate-size allow keywords on your project. In all, which makes you maybe wonder, like, how do I know which one I want to use? Basically, I would put in interpolate-size just all the time, because why not? But the idea with calc-size is you wouldn't use this for transitions specifically. So if I wasn't doing actual math here, if I was just saying, from say a size 0 to a size auto, this would work, but it's kind of like, why bother using the calc-size for this when we could just use the interpolate-size site-wide, or if you wanted to, just on that one element, instead of coming with this. The calc-size really is, as the name says here, the purpose of it is to do calculations. So a calculation would be taking that size and modifying it in one way or another with some math on that element. I did say we could improve this really quickly. So go back to my tab here at the easing wizard, and we could do like a spring here. Let's get we'll do that one and see how this looks. So let's copy that to clipboard. Oh, that's the Tailwind, by the way. If you do use Tailwind, you can get your Tailwind classes there as well, if you insist on using it. But we're going to do it this way. I was going to say something controversial there, but transition. We just want the timing function on that. Paste this entire thing in, which is crazy long. And now that's so much more fun. I like that a lot more already. So there we go. But anyway, yeah, some really awesome new features that have come to CSS. So I hope you like those. If you did enjoy this, go check out other awesome features that are coming to the web in general in the 12 days of web. Sign up for updates. Or again, if you're watching this in the future, go and check it out where all the articles will be there ready for you to read. And with that, I would like to thank my enablers of awesome, Andrew, Simon, and Tim, as well as all of my other patrons and channel members for their monthly support. And of course, until next time, don't forget to make your corner of the internet just a little bit more awesome.